Slide 18 is about the political economy of the United States. Your book explains expansively the political economy of the United States. And if someone asked you, what the heck is political economy? Well, when you're talking about political economy, we are essentially talking about the study of production and trade, how goods and services are produced and traded. Now, in the United States, the political economy is democratic capitalism. Democratic in the sense that it is a representative form of government where we elect our representatives. We can all, over 300 million, cannot go to Washington, but we elect our representatives. It's a representative democracy. It is a form of democratic capitalism because it is the market economy that drives the political system in the United States. So there are certain fundamentals about the political system, the democratic capitalism system. One, that economic incentives through free market. It is the free market that dictates the incentives that runs how people compete and how the social system works. Two, fiscal responsibility, meaning that we need as a society to be very careful to pay down our national debt. It's also a liberal moral cultural systems where the values of liberal democracies inform the United States government. And finally, it encourages pluralism. We are such a diverse state, diverse country, and therefore within that diversity, we make sure that we allow different people who have different orientation, religion, sex, culture, to be also a part of the government or a part of this society. The political economy of the United States can be divided into three prongs. The one prong is called residual welfare model. This is the system that was proposed by Adam and Milton Friedman. It's the private market and the family. In other words, Adam Smith and Milton Friedman, being conservative economists, argue that the private market and the family should be the philosophy that guides the United States political economy system. The outcome for that is that teach people how to do without it. In other words, it's residual, that you as an individual, you have to be self-sufficient. If you cannot, you go to your family. If your family cannot help you, you go to your community, your churches, other people. If the church cannot help you, then you go to the government as a last resort. That's why it's called residual, last resort. Model B is called industrial achievement or performance model. This one is social welfare system that depends on the merit or work performance or productivity. This one is concerned about incentives and market, that you work very hard, you can get a promotion because that's an incentive for you to work very hard. And the third one model is called universalist services, which was basically pronounced by John Maynard Keynes. The social change and equality, which basically that the government and not the market on the basis of need. That the government should allocate goods and services to people on the basis of needs. Your task here is to understand the two. And the United States could be a combination of either one of those. Slide 20, the two cogs of what makes the world go round. This is a hilarious way of how to understand some of these philosophies. Please go through them. The book talks extensively about John Maynard Keynes. Understand some of the key concepts that has or have shaped how he looked as an economist about the United States government. He hypothesized that the social welfare expenditures are investments in human capital that eventually increases the national wealth by increasing productivity. In other words, that those social services and social welfare are not just that you are giving people handouts and giving them help, but actually, according to Keynes, is that it's an investment into human capital. That means if you give people, food stamp, you are investing into their own nutrition, human capital, that eventually will increase their national wealth. That is true for education. That's true for health, and that's how he's conceived the world. He's a liberal part of Here are some of the concepts about Keynesian economy. One is that the market cannot self-regulate. In other words, that we cannot just rely on the market. The market has a lot of failures. We have price fluctuations, the people who are greedy, people who are corrupt, so we cannot rely on the market itself. That the laws of supply and demand are inadequate. They're not sufficient. So go through all those key concepts that put forward by Keynesian in argument why the government should play a very active hand in the economy. Again, this is a continuation of it. He argues for quantitative easing. In the layman's language, he argues, in the time of recession, let the government print more money. That's basically he's talking about quantitative easing. So read through those ones. The question here is that, is this political ideology the one that must likely support an expanse of social security benefits? Of course it is, and I think that's a recall question in your exams that you need to remember. How about the conservative or free market economics? What do they argue for? The policies that shaped the conservative or free market economics took shape during the economic slowdown of 1973. During that economic slowdown in 1973, where the oil prices were, were so high, there's a lot of inflation, conservatives blamed the slowdown on government policies at the time. They argued that there was a lot of deficit spending, that the government was spending too much money. They also argued that there was a lot of progressive taxes, that people were taxed so much, especially the rich. They argued that there was excessive regulation. That's why even today we still have the same arguments that government should not regulate companies or corporations a lot. They also argued for monetary spending, against monetary spending, that we should not spend money that we don't have. The question in your recall question is that cultural conservatism is the most current manifestation of a conservative political ideology because it promotes conformity in social affairs. That's a recall question that you need to remember before. Milton Friedman was the opposite of Keynesianism. He's an ardent critic of Keynesianism. He argued that the role of government is to reduce inflation, money supply in the economy. Of course, Keynesianism argued the opposite. He argued for stable prices, for long-term economic growth, no quantitative easing, no printing of money, that play an inactive role, laissez-faire. The government should not be involved at all. He argued that welfare spending should exist only for altruistic rather than economic reasons. I think that's also another recall question in your examination. He argued for lower income tax and capital gains. That means that you should have, when you do that, going to be trickle-down economics so that the poor will benefit as well. The question, what would be the rationale for the supply-side economics? Think about this as you answer. So here are some of the principles of conservative free market economics. That the highest form of social good is realized by maximizing of self-interest. In other words, that if you allow people to maximize their self-interest, to produce more, to innovate more, to be producing, then you are going to do what? To have a social good. Think about corporations like Honda or Toyota, that they are allowed to do whatever they want to do, or Microsoft. Although they are doing that in self-interest, they are innately doing that for social good. The ideas of the invisible hand, read about the invisible hand and how Adam Smith argued about the invisible hand of benevolence. The best society is one in which everyone actively pursues their own good. That is, if everyone is at liberty to pursue their own end, in so doing, everyone else in the society is going to benefit. That's the idea. Those are the ideas of free market. In your book, you are going to be asked about what democratic socialism is, liberalism is, neoliberalism, conservatism, neoconservatism, libertarianism. I've broken them down for you. Please understand them, because there are some recall questions in your examination that are going to ask you to distinguish one from. In slide 29, this is the welfare philosophy and neoconservative think tanks. When you'll be writing your final paper, I would require you not only to read articles and scientific work out there, I would also require you to go to think tanks, because these are policy think tanks that have written so much about a particular topic, such as the Alternative Vision, the Hoover Institution, American Enterprise, Current Implication. Those are think tanks. You understand what the ideas are. Now, in conclusion, we at least now understand what social policy is. If you cannot define what social policy is, then you have not achieved the goal of this class, and how social policy is important in our clients' lives. 2, we have learned about some social welfare policy programs. How you need to know them. Some of them are public, some of them are private. We have also learned the values that shape American social welfare policy. It's important to understand what are these values that inform or shape American social welfare policy. Learned about schools of thought that shape American social welfare programs. And then finally, just understand that policy is very complex. See you next week, and bye-bye.